giving me the privilege of being here before your meeting really gets going. I just want to assure everyone that I am not a state president of Internationalistan or something, nor am I the sixth clan, but I just thought that as my term as SRSG comes to an end, it was not going to be possible for me to go to each federal member state, and therefore an opportunity to come here to meet everybody to say goodbye was irresistible. So I'm very grateful to you, CIC Chair, President Gass, for inviting me, for giving me a chance to say a few words. Let me just begin by saying it's wonderful to be in Kismaayo again. I think this is my 5th or 6th visit, I'm not sure. And what I'm constantly reminded is that not very long ago, a meeting like this would not have been possible in Kismaayo, both because of the security situation and because this wonderful facility did not exist, but also because the federal state structure was not in place. And that makes me think just how far we've traveled. You know, so often we're focused on the day-to-day politics. We tend to see what's going wrong. We tend to see all the problems. And that is correct. But occasionally, it is very important to step back, as is my privilege now, because I'm leaving, and just remind ourselves of the progress that has been made. And that progress over the last 5 years or so has been truly remarkable. Even in the 3 years that I have been here, a number of extraordinary changes have taken place. I mean, both in terms of the lives of Somalis, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons. I've just been driving around Kismaayo last night and this morning, but I've also been in Baidoa many times and Garowe quite recently, and other state capitals. This country is changing very fast. It's urbanizing very fast. There is a lot more economic activity. There's a lot more going on than we imagine. There's a lot more investment. I think business confidence is going up. So there's some very positive things happening. Domestic revenues, the revenues that I believe Kismaayo is raising, but also the federal government, and I hope eventually all the federal member states, is going up. These are very, very positive developments. And in the few years that I've been here, we've seen the continuation, not quite the completion, of the state formation process. After all, Hirshabelle only came into existence 1 year ago. Is it less than 1 year ago? 1 year ago. 1 year ago. We've had the electoral process, which delivered, despite how extraordinary it was. I mean, my poor colleagues who came from all over the world, who were electoral experts, tried to understand what was going on, and they found it very, very difficult. It was a very uniquely Somali process. But the results was accepted as legitimate by everyone in Somalia, by the region, and by the international community. And I remember President Kenyatta saying at the inauguration, you know, how peaceful it was a contrast to the problems that many other countries in Africa face during presidential transfers of power. So that was a big achievement. The quota for women went up from 14 to, I think, 24 or 25%. We have an upper house that is reflecting the regions. And of course the electoral process took place in many parts of the country, not just in Mogadishu. We also, I think partly as a result of that successful process. I would like to pay tribute to all of you, federal member state presidents, but also those who are not here, the business community, the diaspora, the federal government, the president, for responding to the drought last year in such an amazing way. Again, let's remind ourselves that 18 months ago, people were saying that maybe 250,000 people could die of drought and famine. And yet there was national mobilization to respond to that. I think because the electoral process was seen as legitimate, the international community provided very large sums of money very quickly, but they worked, the humanitarian organizations were more prepared, and they worked with the private sector and with you, and it made a difference. We avoided a famine in 2017. That's incredible. Let's not forget these kind of very big achievements. I think another achievement has been, you know, the emergence of a government in Mogadishu with a strong agenda. I know this is what you're going to be talking about, the implementation of that agenda. But the agenda is a strong one. It's about financial reform, economic reform, reform in the security sector, and inclusive politics in the Constitution, the electoral process, and I hope in strengthening approaches to conflict resolution and reconciliation. So I just want to make the point that I know the purpose of your meeting is to get into the nitty-gritty, but let's not lose the sense of perspective of where things are going. Of course, I'm very alarmed by what I've heard some of you saying about your concerns about the security situation in particular. That's of great concern. And there are many challenges, and as I think you've said, that after so many years of civil war, so much distrust among Somalis, and the absence of institutions. You know, building institutions takes time. You can destroy them very quickly, but building them takes a lot of time, whether it's a justice system, an education system, whether it's an army or a police force. These are not technical matters. These are matters about building trust between everyone so that institutional capacity can emerge. And I think I'm not going to speak for long. I just want to sort of conclude by saying that, you know, it has been a huge privilege for me to work with all of you. I have learned so much. In fact, I arrived, you know, I think within 1 week I had met all the principal political actors in this country, the President, the Prime Minister, the Speaker, the Deputy Speakers, the federal member state presidents, the ministers, because we were in the middle of a full-blown crisis about the electoral model. And guess what? The issues were, could Mogadishu trust, you know, the federal member states? Could the federal member states trust Mogadishu? There were wonderful conspiracy theories. I think this is what I'm going to miss most, is all the conspiracy theories. You know, everything you do or say, everyone reads into it some wonderful conspiracy theory that shows the great imagination of Somalis. I mean, these conspiracy theories, you know, if you could make money out of them, this would be a very rich country. You know, so, but I do think, I think the point that a couple of you have made, and I believe, is that unity among Somali political leaders will allow this country to do almost anything. It's a rich country. The rivers, the oceans, the fish, the livestock, the people, the energy, the sun. It's a rich country. And we're being held back by lack of trust, by lack of institutions. And I think the fact that the federal government has chosen to label its agenda inclusive politics is very significant. And I think the point is they must be inclusive. And, you know, that means having the mechanisms in place to make sure that politics really are inclusive, as well as having the personal relations that allow trust to be built and momentum to be made. And let me just say that, you know, there are many federal countries in the world, and some of them are considered to be very advanced and sophisticated, like the United States or the Federal Republic of Germany. I'm telling you, they still have problems making their federal system work. And in some cases, that's 200 years after the countries were founded. They have issues about revenue and resource sharing. They have issues about the justice system. They have issues about the police and the army. And, you know, I would very much and humbly request, even though I sense the frustration, that coming out of this meeting will be, you know, both, it is your prerogative to express your political views, but constructive suggestions as to how we move forward in each of these areas. And as I think, as President Gass said, you know, there are good plans in place, and you have contributed to them. I mean, I believe the national security architecture is actually pretty good. And if it's not good, let's talk about fixing it. I also believe that the economic and financial reform agenda is good. But if there are problems with it, let's fix it. And if you feel that there are things that are going wrong, I very much hope that your suggestions coming from this meeting will be constructive and that they will provide a basis for continued engagement, even though it's difficult, with the federal government. And to the degree that I have any opportunity and influence, I will emphasize that with other actors as well, including the international community and the federal government and, of course, other sectors of society. So let me just end by, again, thanking you so much. I consider that I'm leaving Somalia with friends. And what more could be important than that? What more important than that? After 3 years, I'm leaving with many, many friends. I hope to stay in touch with many of you. I think it's been such a privilege, as I said, being given an opportunity to contribute to the renewal of Somalia, to getting Somalia to a point where your amazing potential. Somalis are amazing, by the way. If you didn't know this, you're amazing people. You're very entrepreneurial. You're you know, very creative. But you're also, each of you is sovereign. Each of you is a very fierce individual, and each of you wants to protect what's yours. To move forward, we have to kind of pool our efforts and build unity and somehow find a way to improve the lives of ordinary Somalis. You know, and I've been seeing some of them this morning. That's the ultimate test, is improving the lives of so many Somalis. I mean, given how talented and rich Somalia is, it's a shame that so many people are living in poverty. There are so many displaced people. There are so many problems. So getting the politics right is going to be key to solving those problems. And I'm now going to go to New York, to the Security Council, have my final meeting with the Secretary General, hand over to my successor, who's a very good guy, by the way. I think you're going to like him, and hope that we will continue to have this partnership with you going forward. So thank you, Masinte, and Hambalyo.